This is part 11 of our FZR restoration. Today the job I want to try to get done, I want to try to pull this top piece of the fairing off and get the bolt holes drilled and get the new part fit. Now here's a little tip, maybe of some use. One of the things I do whenever I'm doing any kind of work where I'm going to lay the bike up for a month, 2 months or more, I make sure I have the chain, put it up on a stand, and really put a good coat of chain wax on the chain. Otherwise, over the winter time like this, by springtime, that chain will be as rusty as a tuna fish can. It's a good little tip. Now I'm going to be real careful about pulling this part off. We're going to try to save this part, and of course the seat, which we already have off. These parts are still usable for if we ever had to use them over again or whatever. And they're still of some value, so I don't want to destroy them or scratch them or beat them up and taking them off. Now on a day like today, when I'm basically taking a bike apart, is the parts that I'm going to use today. It reminds me, and a lot of people don't know, when I molded these parts, I made them, used the headlights actually for a mold. Made those parts, had to make the carbon fiber windshield after we broke 2 or 3 windshields, I don't remember how many. And it just reminds me, in the very beginning of this, when I bought the bike, the bodywork was so bad, I had thought about making a street fighter out of it. And I drove it up and down a driveway a couple times with no bodywork, and I said, oh, cool, you know. And then I said, nah, I bit the bullet and did all the bodywork, all the Bondo work and everything, and I still have a spare set, but this is the better set of the two, and even this needs a lot of work. So the more of this that I can get started today, the better. And also in the adventure that this bike has become, when we decided to do the Ferrari, faux Ferrari imitation, John Cafaro was kind enough to send me the stickers. He's a real Ferrari owner, and among other things, and a great modeler. And he donated these Ferrari emblems, which I have on, actually I have it on 2 of the bikes. But so they always meant a little bit special to me because they had been given to me by John. And again, John, a day like today, I think, a good time to thank you again. So here's the thing, there's a lot going on in the front of this bike as I fit up the parts. I know these parts are going to need a little bit of adjustment. They're a little bit bent, and I had to make reinforcements over the years, and I'm not sure, again, that I have all the parts. So I'm going to do a little cleanup on that before I go down to the shop and try to figure out if there's anything I want to do in here before I start fitting up the fairing. I've got the chain all greased now, so not going to come out of a month from now and we have a rusty chain. So as I look around at any other little things, I want to set the headlights up differently. I didn't like that, and I do have to make some change to that bottom piece, and I don't know why that doesn't fit. I've got to look at that, maybe make some different brackets or adjust something. So it's quite a bit of work. It's more than you think it is. But we have really had a lot of fun for 5 years with this paint job. And now once the new bodywork is on and a new paint job, for me it'll be like having a brand new bike. And I never have to register it again. This bike is registered for life and for free. Never pay another penny for registration, and it's registered historically. So it's a double win-win for me. And it's got the handlebars on that I find comfortable. A lot of good things. And it's a bike that's still very easy to get any spare parts you need for it. So we finally found a place on the shelf where we can retire some of these extra parts that we have. And that's very convenient. Now I tried to tidy up some of the wires here. That was a pretty simple job. look around for some of the things I know are going to be a problem if I don't clean them up and tidy them up right now before I fit the fairing. Now while you have a bike apart, you can see this has taken a crack. It's already been JB welded, but the crack is down there. So that's one of the things. Now I'll put a little clean that up a little bit. Put a little JB weld on that while I have the front apart. Now I think one other thing that I have a choice here. At some point in time I may want to make this a street fighter. I know there's going to be a lot of work on those bottom body panels though. If I eliminated that, it'd save a month. Just kidding. I really do want to get all the body work and the tank really as good as I can make it. Now I learned another valuable lesson. When it's below freezing out in the garage and you have your electric heater going, there's nothing tastes better than a great cup of coffee. And Karen graciously has just phoned me and told me the coffee is on. Now as I'm going around and have the bike semi apart like this, I'm making a little note of all little things I want to do. That speedometer crack, to fix that part at the bottom. I need to make a stiffener for the tail light. I notice it's loose too. These are things that after 5 years need a little tightening up. This is the best tasting cup of coffee ever in this cold temperature. So after a nice hot cup of coffee, I want to mix up some JB weld and repair that speedometer piece, because that's in the back where you never really get to see it. Make a little patch on that. Of course, I'll take a little piece of sandpaper, roughen up the plastic, clean it with prep ball, and put that on. So now, as our restoration moves along here, I have the bolt holes all set on this. This is in white. The fender is in white. It's drying up by a heating vent. These parts are done. These parts will get attached with, and maybe attached this afternoon if this job moves right along. And the next step on this, and I try to do this in sequence, is to take this out and try to get the holes drilled and get this all lined up. And that'll be ready to bring in and attach these parts, and if we don't run out of time today. And it's nice to know every bit of the hardware that we're taking off will have all new bolts, all new Loctite, all new lock nuts, and it should make the job of taking this apart, putting it back together over the course of the restoration that much easier. I always want to prep the area for JB weld with cleaning and sanding, and we're ready. Now that JB weld joint held, but you can tell this is going to be vulnerable as time goes by. So patching these little things up while we have all the fairing parts off, very handy. Now because I'm going to be working up in the front of the motorcycle, I'm going to cover this area with some tape or with a rag or something, just to get that I'm not sticking my hand into the wet JB weld, because in this cold temperature this is going to take overnight to dry. Alright, I'll just protect it while I'm test fitting this part. And this should be a little labor intensive, but I do want to get it right. Now as I do the first test, just a rough fit here, I can see there's going to be a lot of little trimming has to be done. The first interference we have are these brackets that we're not actually using for anything. So I'm going to trim these off. That'll just give me a clearer shot to get these parts on and off. Now normally the headlight would hook to this, and since we're not using a headlight as such, we don't really need that little piece on there. So that's one piece we really don't need, because we're not going to have the stock headlights on. It'll make the fitting of this part, it'll definitely make it a lot easier. And now we have plenty of clearance in there. Now we got to do the other side. Well, after fitting this part up and trying to fit it up for many, many hours here, you don't see it on the video, of course, but I've come to realize and that I'm limited now. Now I really have to make a decision. This part is obviously from, now this is from a 91. This is, I am guessing, the scoops are just a little bit different. It's very similar, but it's not the same. And I'm going to try to make it fit. I'll probably spend the rest of this day trying to make it fit. But then if it doesn't fit, the only choice I'm going to have is to strip this part down, cut it all up, strip it down, and this is the kind of thing that happens on every restoration. Is always something. But I'm going to spend the rest of the day, I'll probably do most of it off camera and try to make a corporate decision if I want to try to fit that part that looks like it's from a different year bike. It's very similar, but it's not exactly the same. And it's not the same in probably an inch, inch and a half when you go to line it up. So I don't know what I'm going to be able to do here. So again, the problem is that before I do any more cutting and shaving, you can see how much this is off. It's off by quite a bit, by an inch. So I don't know. I don't know if we're going to be able to somehow use this. I don't know. I'm gonna call AIRTECH and try to find out. Maybe this is a part from an 83 or an 81, or I mean a 93. Because see what happened? Every year they change these fairings incrementally. But now before I go and make that decision, well, I got to figure out how I can do this. Because if I move that part back, the windshield is interference, and then that's a problem too. So, oh, we got this is all part of working on old motorcycles. So I wish I could make this up, but the reality is I can't. What has happened is this is a fairing that AIRTECH makes that replaces the Yamahas for several years that have one headlight. When they have two headlights, this part doesn't fit. So we're going to save this for a future project, because for me it will be a lot less work to take the finish off this, and I'm going to have to fiberglass and Bondo in those headlights, but I do have the thixotropic resin, so that'll be a whole nother project. It's going to add maybe a week or two to the project. But this part, when I've gone to fit it, what happens is when you line this part up, everything up here doesn't line up. So I know actually, I don't have to do anything with the bracketing. I can leave this just the way it is. The extra labor that I'm going to have is to strip down the original dual headlight fairing. And keep in mind, if anybody falls into this trap again, here's the difference. The scoops aren't exactly the same. Everything is very similar because it's from a similar year bike. Even the back is the same, except if you look at it real close, this one is higher this way, just enough that it doesn't fit. So, okay, well, I've had other setbacks before. What it means is the next time I get a work session, I'm going to strip the paint off this and know that I have to use this part. So even though the plan has changed, it's definitely adds some time and energy to the project. It just changes it. But it did give me another thought. I'm going to hang on to this, of course I have a windshield that matches it too, for some other project. And I may at some point in time figure a way I can use that to do if I ever get around, you never know, to doing a restoration on this bike. This bike needs a crankshaft, so that's a major thing. But I will have, there's no point in returning the fairing, that's for sure. And be aware that these Yamahas, the single headlight ones and the dual headlight ones, are not interchangeable. And they look real close until you go to fit them. Now, to be honest, that was information I was not aware of, and I'm not even sure that unless you've done this restoration, you would come across that knowledge. But we're going to share it through our video. There are other people that are restoring these bikes and similar bikes. There's a good lesson to learn today, but we've had setbacks before. We're going to move on, and next time we get to do a session, we'll pull this windshield apart and strip off the paint. and I'll do some carbon fiber work on the front, and maybe in the end it'll all work in our favor. You never know. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video, enjoy the information, and thanks for watching.